Hello, and thank you for joining me today. Well, this is the Monday, June 29th edition of our video devotionals. Thank you so much for joining us today, and hope your Monday is going well. It is the beginning of the work week once again, practically the end of the month of June. So we almost have the first half of the year 2026 completed, but not quite yet. We don't want to rush it too much, right? We're going to be in Acts chapter 7 today. We're going to start at verse 23, and I've got two other verses marked. And we're going to give you something here from the Bible we believe will be of some help to you. As always, thank you for watching, comments, acknowledgments, all of that, okay? All right, so on this Monday, Acts chapter 7, the setting here is Stephen, the first of those seven deacons, is basically gathered up by the council, and they stand before them, these religious leaders, and basically he's given an account of why he does what he does, and all of that, and they're angry with him, but they're listening to what he's got to say. At the end of this sermon, they're going to stone him, and very violently, really, the way the Bible describes it. But he begins this sermon, and within this sermon, there's a lot of content that's devoted to Moses. So I want you to notice verse number 23. It says, "And when he," the he there is Moses, "when he was full 40 years old, it came into his heart to visit his brethren, the children of Israel." So he sees an altercation going on. He kills an Egyptian, hides him in the sand. Well, some people saw that. And I think the ones that saw it is, or at least the word got around, but he saw another fight, I think, between the Hebrews, and they were fighting, and he said, "You shouldn't be doing that." And they said, "Well, you're going to kill us like you did the Egyptian?" And he knew then he needed to get out of town because he would be, if that got back to Pharaoh, and he would have been killed. So he goes into the wilderness, all right? So that being said, I want you to notice verse number 30. "And when 40 years were expired, there appeared to him in the wilderness of Mount Sinai an angel of the Lord in a flame of fire in a bush." Now, we understand the burning bush experience. If you've been in church any length of time, God's going to approach Moses, or he approaches the bush, and God speaks to him. It basically says, "You're going to lead my people out of Israel, out of Egypt, rather." And so, of course, there's a lot of conversation about that. So Moses then is going to be the leader. Him and Aaron are going to go to Pharaoh. And, of course, there'll be the 10 plagues. Finally, the children of Israel are sent out of Egypt. And, of course, they're going to come to the Red Sea. That's going to be parted. So there's this point where they're on their way to the Promised Land. Then, of course, there's going to be that part where 12 spies go to look out the land of Canaan. 2 come back excited, which is Joshua and Caleb. 10 of them says, "Oh, we're scared. We can't do it. We're scared for our children." And God was angry with that. He says, "Okay, because of that and your lack of trust and believing me, and you brought back an evil report, then there's going to be 40 years of wandering in the wilderness." So when you get to verse number 42, as I read it, it says, "Then God turned and gave them up to worship the host of heaven, as it is written in the book of the prophets, O ye house of Israel, have ye offered to me slain beasts and sacrifices by the space of 40 years in the wilderness." So I don't know if you've noticed in these 3 primary verses that we've looked at here, 40 years is the segment of time. That's not by accident. If you go back to verse 23, it uses the expression full 40 years, full 40 years. Then notice verse 30. "And when 40 years were expired," see that length of time, and literally 40 years. And then, of course, you get down to the last verse we read, and it talked about the space of 40 years in the wilderness. So when you look at Moses' life, you can divide it up easily into 40-year segments, 3 of those. 40 years Egypt, 40 years in the wilderness, and then 40 years again in the wilderness with the children of Israel there. And then, of course, Moses would die, would not go into the Promised Land, but Joshua and Caleb would. They're the only 2 men of that age group that would go in. And, of course, you'd have the children and growing up and all of that. So my point is, the practical side of this is that there is a definite 40-year segment of time that it seems that God has looked at and says, this will be the time period. It didn't just work out that way. It is what it is, as we say. It's like the providence of God. And, the Bible speaks about there's timing with God. There's timing with God. A lot of verses that speak to that. So when you think about Moses' life, 40-year segments, and really think about that middle time period. He left basically, as a superior amongst everyone. And then he really became what we call like a nobody, just a shepherd, really accomplishing not very much in the wilderness, and probably thought, man, what is my life out here? And, all that 40 years, that's a long time, a third of his life. So I'm saying this, if you sometimes wonder about God's timing, just let God be God. And there's things that need to happen. There's things outside of your arena that God's waiting to happen or God's making to happen. And then the timing will be right. For Moses, it was 40 years and 40 years and 40 years. I don't know what it is for you and me, but you know what? Let's just trust God and know that God knows what he's doing. But God definitely put that in his word to let us notice that and see that, think, you know what, there you go. So when I think sometimes it's just, man, why do we have to wait? I just realized God says, I know what I'm doing here. And Moses' life was in 3 40-year segments. That's amazing, isn't it? Well, we're going to stop right there. Have a great day, safe day, healthy day, Lord willing. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you for watching.